Wanted to make a quick video today just to add some value to people that are maybe young in business or thinking about getting in business, because being a business owner is not an easy journey. There's a reason 50% of the businesses fail in the first 2 years in business, according to Small Business Administration. It's just not an easy road. There's a lot of pitfalls, a lot of things you need to think about when you're going down this journey. So if you're thinking about becoming an entrepreneur or a small business owner, hopefully this adds value to you and helps you make some good decisions, gives you some things to think about. But a little bit about me: grew up basically poor, single mom, jumping out of planes for the Army when I was 17, turned 18 in jump school, and got out of the military, essentially got into sales, and that's where I found my niche. And actually realized that I had an entrepreneurial mindset, a business owner mindset from a very young age, from trading baseball cards and working at a baseball card shop for $1 an hour just to be around it. So, I always kind of figured that's where I would end up. But ultimately, there's a lot of things you need to know when you go into business. You might be good at sales, you might be a good plumber, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be a good business owner. You could be a great CPA, it doesn't mean you're going to do really well as a business owner, and I think that's where a lot of people fail. So there's a book called The E-Myth that I highly recommend. How to Win Friends and Influence People, and 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Those are some of the books that I think have impacted me the most as a business owner. Recommend getting the audio book. I think they'll really help you. I wish I would have listened to the E-Myth much before I actually did. But those books I think will add a lot of value and be real positive to you. That's a little bit about my story. I started a first company, a security company, in 2004 with a few other people. Over time, ended up buying them out, and long story short, sold that company in 2009. Wasn't a great merge ultimately, and went back to, after being VP of sales for that company, went back to start an iWatch Security in 2010. And really just wasn't looking to grow anything big, didn't want to create a huge company or anything like that. And ultimately, I've been self-employed for most of my life since getting out of the military, so you learn a lot. If you're thinking about being self-employed or you're thinking about starting a business, the number one thing you need to really focus on is adding value to other people. Your business should solve problems. Your business should be make things convenient for people. Amazon.com has built a business on convenience. They do it better. They do it more cost effectively in a lot of cases. And, they're going to be the first $1 trillion company out there if they're not already. So ultimately, solving problems, save people time, make things more convenient, and if you're going to grow, I think if you're really going to grow a good business, you need to care. You need to have empathy for people. You need to be able to put yourself in their shoes and really want to do a good job for people. So, in a great economy, a lot of bad contractors will survive, but when the correction comes, they just won't make it. So that's just a couple things, but really what you should be bringing to the table is service and expertise. That's really where you're going to shine. My company has 800 plus licensed security companies in North Carolina, and we've built a great reputation. We've built a great customer base, and we compete against companies that are huge, billion-dollar companies that are worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And we compete really well against the biggest companies in our industry. And, I've learned a lot from that, and it has a lot to do with relationships and trust and some of these other things that I'm going to talk about today. Because when people can tell that you really care about doing a good job for them, you're impossible for a big company to compete with. You're just impossible. So at the end of the day, when you provide that real high-level customer service and you create an experience for someone, that's where you're going to shine. So a couple things. Great communication is paramount when you're dealing with people. Really setting the expectation, really understanding what they want, and doing your absolute best to communicate what you're expecting to deliver. You want to make sure expectations are matched up. And then you really want to under-promise and over-deliver. 7 Habits Highly Effective People talks about how uncommunicated expectations are the worst thing for relationships. If my client is expecting X and we've never discussed it, a lot of times they may get mad at you as the business owner, but that was never discussed. So you really want to do your best to create clear communication with you and your client, set the expectation the best you can, and when you do find that you make a mistake or something happened that was maybe never really discussed, you as the business owner, you have to adjust what you're doing so that doesn't happen again. So over time, every client you have, you should be getting better at what you do. You should be implementing processes and procedures to make sure that you are creating the best experience possible. So developing relationships is huge, networking, and just realize every time you meet someone, you're developing your brand. Every time you talk and communicate and discuss anything, you're branding 100% of the time. That old saying, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. It's true. That first impression, a lot of people decide, I heard this a while back, that of course being a natural sales guy, being in sales primarily most of my life, that people decide whether or not they're going to listen to you or buy from you in the first 5 seconds. They're either open-minded or they're closed-minded very quickly. It has a lot to do not only with how you look, but your air about you, your body language, the way you're interacting with them. Do they sense that you're uncomfortable, or do they sense that you're completely comfortable? So there's a whole lot of things that you can study to get better in those areas. How to build rapport. There's a great Anthony Robbins video, How to Build Rapport. If anybody wants it, just let me know and I'll grab the YouTube link and post it. But very, very important. People hang around with people that they like, and people like people that are like themselves. So the more you can parallel people authentically, the better off you're going to be. So that's really important. 2 last things are this, is that, there's that old saying, fake it till you make it. It's total garbage. You're going to fake it till you go out of business. People don't want to be with someone that's letting them down or not being there when they're supposed to, not accountable to a result. There is no faking it. If you need to get better at what you need to do, then do whatever you got to do to get better, to offer a high level of service. When you're a business owner, there is no faking it. You're the last line of defense. You're the difference between accountability and unaccountability. Even when there's employees that maybe haven't done a great job, or maybe the systems or the processes, something was let down. At the end of the day, you're the business owner and you need to be accountable to that result. Own it. Don't make excuses. We're not a perfect company, and I tell people all the time, it's not a matter of if a mistake is made. It's not a matter of if the equipment goes wrong. Something's going to go wrong. What most people want is just someone that's accountable to the result and takes care of whatever needs to be taken care of. So the last thing I'll leave you with is this. I call it CPR. And it's extremely important, and it really resonates with me looking back and basically 20 plus years of being self-employed. Consistency, C. P, persistency. You're not only consistent in attitude and work ethic and accountability, but you're persistently going after your goals and vision and persistently trying to get better. So that's CP, and then R, resilient. There's a whole bunch of stuff. If you're self-employed, there's a whole bunch of stuff coming at you that you can't forecast. The Great Recession, technician, running into somebody, a vehicle, something going wrong in the company one way or another. It's always something, and you have to be mentally resilient. You really have to be prepared for the unprepared. You have to expect the unexpected. and you just have to be able to roll with it. And, I'm much more resilient now than I was, say, 10, 15 years ago, where I used to be a little bit too much of a sergeant from the military, or too hot-headed, or too in your face with employees or customers or whatever. And a lot of that was stress. But I can tell you this, that you just have to be consistent, persistent, and you have to be resilient. And that's the only way you're going to win. You have to implement those three things. So hopefully this helped today. It's just kind of some high-level principles about being a business owner with 2 decades of experience. And, I'm still learning. I'm still consistently, persistently going after the knowledge. I'm consistently, persistently looking at myself, analyzing my strengths and my weaknesses, and doing my best to put people around me that complement and shield my weaknesses while I'm developing my strengths. John Maxwell talks about how on a scale of 1 to 10, like I'll use me for example, administratively, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm probably about a 3 or a 4. If I took the time to really invest in becoming better in that area of my life, maybe I go from a 4 to a 6. Maybe I go from a 4 to a 7. But nobody really wants to pay for a 7. But if I take my natural skill set, sales, leadership, that sort of thing, and I can go from an 8 to a 10, well, people pay for excellence. And so you need to have a good inventory of your strengths and weaknesses, and you need to do your best to create a team around you that complement you in a way that a spouse would, essentially. That you're looking for someone that's strong where you're weak. And then you have to do what you have to do to retain your good people, and create the environment that meets their needs. And that's probably a whole nother podcast that honestly, that's something I'm still consistently working on as well. So hopefully this helped. If you're thinking about starting a business, hopefully this helped you out. And certainly any questions, I'll be looking for the questions on Facebook or YouTube or anything like that, and I'll do my best to get back to all those questions, and certainly do some more of these in the future. Thanks.